In this video, I'd like to discuss what I believe are the 5 fundamental technologies that you'll want to learn, or most everyone should at a bare minimum be aware of. There are common threads tying all these 5 technologies together. And in the next series of slides, I think it will be very clear what that technology is. Our first fundamental area to learn or be aware of is HTML, Hypertext Markup Language. HTML has been around since the early 90s, and it powers, or is the fundamental markup language that powers every web page that you consume. So why is it important to learn HTML? Well, the web has become the new operating system. Most software applications are run in a browser tab. Contrast that with 30 years ago, and most applications were desktop, thick client centric. In the early 2000s, the shift started to thin client or browser-based applications. And many of the most powerful applications you use today, you use through a web browser. So HTML is the fundamental underpinning technology that is rendered to the screen, and it allows for the web we have today. But its roots go all the way back to the 60s, 1960s. And then in the 1980s with SGML, Standard Generalized Markup Language. That standard from 1986 basically spawned HTML. So we can see that this technology is web-centric. We can see that this technology has been around for decades. Our next technology, Cascading Style Sheet Language. CSS is the formatting, the display of the HTML. It provides the ability to style the markup and give interactivity as well as rich visualization. CSS is also a web technology baked into the browser. It has been around for decades as well. So we have HTML, we have CSS. Our next technology is JavaScript. Here again, with the birth of the internet, the web, and the web browser, the core 3 technologies are HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. But JavaScript has grown beyond the boundary of just web browser-based scripting. You can run JavaScript on the server. Now, whether that's necessary or not with today's API-rich environment, it is permissible. So JavaScript and its counterpart JSON, JavaScript Object Notation, is a technology that you really want to be aware of. Do you need to know all the intricacies of it? Do you need to write script? That's very debatable at this time in the history of the web, as well as in the history of programming. because we have more and more code generation tools that are handling this for us, but it's still important to understand the core technology and what it does. So I've tied together 3 technologies that are web-centric: HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. All of these technologies are decades old, and they are governed by international standards bodies. HTML and CSS has the W3C, or the World Wide Web Consortium. JavaScript has ECMA International, or the European Computer Manufacturers Association. So these are standards bodies, and that provides some level of stability so that vendors can apply their wares in using the technology, but hopefully not usurp the core technology itself. Our 4th technology is SQL, or Structured Query Language. This language is database centric. Why learn the fundamentals of SQL? Because most back-end storage is database. The data that comes out of the database and through the browser tab to your eyes is stored in a database of some format. Now, there are different types of databases, but the core construct of how you query a database is rooted in decades-old technology. That technology is also an ISO, International Standards Organization, standard. So here again, we have a technology that has decades under its belt, and it is governed by a standards body. So while something like Salesforce can introduce their own flavor of SQL, the core constructs of SQL remain the same. Learn it once and be able to reuse it in many different flavors. The final technology here is XML. Extensible Markup Language is a cousin of HTML. It is rooted in decades-old experience. It is also rooted in the same fundamentals with the same standards body to govern its use. What you will see is JSON and XML are the 2 lingua franca of data interchange at this time. JSON, with its key value pairs, has become more or less the standard because JavaScript can work with it natively. XML, on the other hand, can still be worked with in JavaScript, but it does require a parser and a little bit more syntax to work with it. But what is the benefit of XML? Well, it still is used heavily by the vendors for their instruction files as well as payloads to send data back and forth over the internet. So learning XML, or at least the core constructs of XML, just like JSON, will help you understand how data is sent back and forth from the browser to the server. So in conclusion, if you can find a technology that has an international standards body behind it and decades of material around it, meaning usage, guides, help files, tutorials, etc. The investment you will make of your time in learning the fundamentals of that technology will be worth it. You will get your return on your investment. So to me, that is the most important thing to understand or concept to grasp, is look for those technologies that are not only driving today's world, which is through the browser tab, but have the longevity and the standards bodies behind them to continue on. Then investing your time will become much more valuable. Thanks.